Hi, everyone. Today we're starting with a story that cuts deeper than most because it doesn't begin with shouting or violence or even anger. It begins with a smile at gate 32 that carried centuries of judgment behind it, a smile that said, "You don't belong here," even though no one dared say the words out loud. And by the time that smile faded, lives would change, careers would collapse, and one woman's silence would become the loudest thing in the building. This could happen to anyone, even you. So before we dive into the story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it right now? Let's get into it. It was just after 9 a.m. at San Francisco International Airport, the kind of morning where light poured through the giant windows, warming the floor tiles and casting long shadows under weary travelers. Businessmen in tailored suits clicked away on Bluetooth calls. Vacationing families argued over stroller parts. But amid the swirl of motion and noise stood a single woman, moving with purpose. Ariana Sinclair, 52, didn't dress to impress. She didn't have to. A soft teal travel suit, white blouse, and low heels were enough. Her black carry-on suitcase rolled silently beside her. A matching leather briefcase hung from her left shoulder. Her hair was braided back in a neat crown, her face calm, unreadable. Every inch of her reflected quiet power, the kind of presence that makes people instinctively step aside without knowing why. Ariana was the CEO of Horizon Global Travel, one of the largest travel infrastructure companies in the world. Most people didn't know that, and she didn't feel the need to announce it. She didn't need to flash a badge or wield status. Her presence alone had always been enough, or so she thought. She made her way to Gate 32, where her flight to Chicago would depart in under an hour. She had reserved seat 2A in first class, as she always did, quiet front corner aisle seat, the kind where you can get on and off without brushing past anyone. Ariana didn't like to be noticed. She preferred to observe. But on this morning, it wasn't her who did the observing first. At the counter stood a young white woman in a crisp uniform. Her name tag read Samantha Delaney, maybe 32, maybe younger. Her hair was twisted tight in a bun, not a strand out of place. Her lips were coated with matte lipstick, and her smile was practiced, cold under the surface like a bartender who's heard the same joke too many times. As Ariana approached, Samantha's eyes swept her from head to toe in a flash, smile still in place. But there it was, the glance, that pause, that subtle shift behind the eyes. Ariana had seen it in boardrooms, hotels, country clubs, luxury car showrooms, and real estate closings. The mental calculation of, what's she doing here? Sometimes it was disguised as curiosity, other times as confusion. But at its core, it was a challenge to belonging. And Ariana had learned long ago that when those looks showed up, the rules often bent in someone else's favor. "Good morning," Ariana said softly, her voice smooth, polished, and precise. "Can you confirm my boarding for seat 2A? She offered her phone with the barcode and her printed boarding pass, both clearly marked first class, Nashin, seat 2A. Samantha took the documents slowly, then frowned slightly at the screen. Not confusion, performance. "Oh," she said, dragging out the syllable. "Ms. Sinclair, it looks like there's been a random reassignment. The system shows you've been moved to, let's see, seat 41B. The way she said random reassignment was like reading off a menu item she didn't believe in. Ariana blinked once. "That's economy." Samantha gave a light, almost amused shrug. "Yes, unfortunately. There must have been a tech issue. These things happen. I'm sorry." But her smile didn't say sorry. It said, "You're not what we expected." Behind her, another agent looked up, caught the interaction, and quickly looked away. A small smirk pulled at the corner of his mouth before he busied himself with a keyboard. Passengers in line shifted slightly. Some stole glances. A man in a fleece jacket frowned and tapped his foot impatiently. A woman behind Ariana rolled her eyes as if Ariana were somehow causing a scene by merely standing there. Ariana felt the heat of eyes, but not the warmth of empathy. She knew this moment well, 100 versions of it replayed across 100 different rooms. But it still stung, not because of the seat, but because of the dismissive ease with which her worth had been erased. "I booked and confirmed seat 2A, she said calmly. "You can check the reservation code." "I did," Samantha said, her fingers suddenly flying across the keyboard in an exaggerated show of effort. But once the system reassigns a seat, there's really nothing we can do. You're welcome to speak to customer service, though they're off-site today. Or I can put in a manual request, but it probably won't go through in time. She gave a saccharine smile, then added with a tone just a shade too light, "Is there anything else I can help you with?" There it was, the end of the script, the moment when you're politely dismissed while being professionally degraded. Ariana didn't flinch. She simply nodded once, took back her ticket, and stepped away from the counter. Not toward the economy gate, but toward a quiet row of chairs by the windows. She sat down, placed her briefcase neatly at her feet, and watched. Quietly, intently. She wasn't done. Not yet. But she wasn't going to raise her voice or make a scene. Because Ariana Sinclair had learned a long time ago that silence, when wielded by the right person, could do more damage than 100 shouted words. She crossed her legs, folded her hands in her lap, and waited. From her seat by the window, Ariana watched the airport scene unfold like a film she'd seen before, only this time she wasn't in the audience. She was the quiet force no one had factored into the script. Samantha Delaney carried on at the counter, her posture tall, her movements smooth, her voice now notably warmer and more accommodating as the next passenger stepped forward. A white man in a navy vest approached, clearly a regular flyer. By the way, he didn't even need to show ID. Samantha lit up like the sun, her fingers gliding over the keyboard with uncharacteristic speed. "Good morning, Mr. Eastman," she chirped. "We've gone ahead and upgraded you to 3B aisle seat as you like. Thank you for your loyalty." He gave her a thumbs up and walked off with a smile. No questions asked, no random reassignment, no system glitch. Next came a young blonde woman in high heels and a soft pink sweater. Her tone was slightly panicked, something about a delayed connection. But Samantha reassured her, quickly rebooked her without hassle, and even bumped her to a window seat complete with a complimentary drink voucher. Watching these interactions, Ariana felt no surprise. Just a chilling confirmation. The speed, the flexibility, the attentiveness, it was all available. Just not to her. She looked down at her phone and quietly opened a secure messaging app. One message, 3 words, "Initiate Protocol Delta." She hit send. No one saw it. No one heard it. But a storm had just been set in motion. Back at the counter, a shift supervisor emerged from the adjacent office, gave Samantha a glance, and walked away. Ariana noticed the subtle cues exchanged, silent communications that most people would miss. But she had built an empire understanding the language of power, what people say when they say nothing at all. And then came Daniel Reyes. Young, nervous, maybe his first year on the job. His dark hair was tousled, and his badge still had the temporary red stripe that marked new hires. He approached her slowly, glancing around like someone about to commit treason. "Miss Sinclair?" he asked, voice low. Ariana looked up. His face was flushed. I don't mean to overstep," he said quickly. "I overheard them." Back at the agent break room, Ariana said nothing. Her gaze remained steady. "They said," Daniel swallowed, "they said you didn't match the airline's preferred image for first class." I didn't want to believe it, but they literally used those words. "She's not our brand." "I'm sorry." He stood there as if waiting to be scolded, or thanked, or dismissed. Ariana simply nodded once. "Thank you for your honesty, Mr. Reyes." He hesitated, then added, "I know you probably already knew." "I did," she said. "But now it's confirmed." Daniel looked away ashamed and retreated to the gate desk, his steps hurried and uncertain. Ariana watched him go, then returned to her observation. Samantha laughed softly with another agent. From their gestures, it was obvious they were still mocking the incident. One even mimicked a stiff, elegant walk, clearly a jab at Ariana's posture. She didn't flinch, but inside something shifted. Not rage, not vengeance, just clarity. The situation was no longer personal. It was structural, embedded, rehearsed, and today would be the last time it went unchallenged. Ariana didn't know if Samantha knew who she was. Most people didn't. Her company wasn't flashy. Horizon Global Travel operated from behind the scenes, integrating airlines, hotels, car services, and booking platforms across 5 continents. Her signature was on over 200 contracts, some of them critical to the very airline that had just told her she didn't belong in seat 2A. Across the terminal, another boarding group was announced. Ariana didn't move. She wasn't planning to board that flight. Not anymore. Instead, she opened her laptop, logged into a secure executive dashboard, and started watching in real time. The first flag hit at 9:37 a.m., a sudden drop in executive class bookings from a major banking client handled through Horizon. Then at 9:43, a bulk cancellation from a German investment delegation, followed by alerts from their Tokyo and Dubai partners. The airline's internal system was blinking red, and none of the agents at Gate 32 had a clue. Ariana didn't gloat. She didn't even smile. This wasn't revenge, it was exposure. All Samantha had done was provide the final example needed to demonstrate what Ariana and so many others had known for years. The airline had a pattern of quietly downgrading, delaying and minimizing passengers who didn't fit their preferred image, especially Black women, foreign accents, differently abled individuals, and anyone who didn't look like a stock photo in their loyalty app. The patterns were there, buried in the data, but no one had been able to make them undeniable. Until now. At 10:05 a.m., Ariana's phone buzzed again. A message from her executive assistant, ethics and compliance team has flagged the carrier. Operations lock engaged. Proceed. Ariana tapped yes. In the span of one morning, the airline that had dismissed her would find itself under full review. Their multi-year partnership with Horizon Global, worth over $180 million, was now suspended pending investigation. And not just with Horizon. Because when Ariana sent her initial message, she hadn't only contacted her own team. She had triggered an alert across an international alliance of travel leaders, many of them women, people of color, and executives who had quietly faced similar indignities. The warning went out like a ripple: this airline disrespects our own. It cannot be trusted with our business. The effect was immediate, silent, and devastating. Samantha, meanwhile, remained oblivious, still smirking, still confident that she had put a woman in her place and won the unspoken game of gatekeeping. But the game had just changed, and Ariana Sinclair was no longer playing by their rules. The first sign of trouble arrived not as a bang, but as a blink, a single error message flashing across the airline's back-end reservation system, unable to process upgrade request. System delay, please retry. At Gate 32, Samantha Delaney barely noticed. She was too busy fussing over a platinum-tier couple who'd just arrived in matching blazers and Gucci loafers. But over at the corporate booking division, just 6 terminals down the ripple had begun. It moved fast, and it wasn't random. By 10:30 a.m., 3 separate client accounts tied to Horizon Global Travel showed temporary suspension notices in the airline's CRM platform. Samantha remained clueless, but the customer service supervisor on the second floor wasn't. Neither were the account managers monitoring the global dashboards from the airline's East Coast Operations Center. Ariana Sinclair, still seated by the window, eyes calm and laptop open, monitored every shift. She didn't need revenge. She needed exposure. Because Samantha's smirk, casual, practice dripping with privilege, was never about her alone. It was about every woman who had been downgraded without cause. Every non-white traveler told to check again at the gate. Every polite, educated, well-dressed professional who'd had to swallow indignity with a tight smile and a buried rage just to keep moving forward. Ariana had endured her share over the years, in hotels, at conferences, during interviews. She had waited quietly for the moment when the system would finally turn the knife one too many times. That moment had come. Her message to her assistant hadn't been a spontaneous reaction. It was a pre-written trigger, because Ariana had been tracking this airline for months. She'd received dozens of quiet complaints from clients, women of color, elderly travelers, same-sex couples who noticed they were treated differently on this carrier. Not always dramatically, but consistently. Overbooked flights, lost upgrades, dismissive gate agents, seat changes without explanation. The airline had always brushed it off. Isolated incidents, random glitches. We apologize for any inconvenience. Ariana had compiled every instance, created heat maps of where and when the problems occurred, logged the names of repeat offenders, and after today, Samantha Delaney's name had just entered the system, flagged in bold red. By 10:45 a.m., the airline's internal command center was in a state of quiet panic. Horizon Global Travel's sudden pullback had triggered alerts in 5 departments: executive accounts, data integrity operations, international relations, and legal. Calls were made. first to the gate manager, then to senior operations, then to the vice president of partner relations. Still, no one dared make it public. At gate 32, Samantha finally noticed the difference. Not from a system alert, but from the behavior of her colleagues. Daniel Reyes, the new trainee, hadn't said a word to her in 20 minutes. Melanie Brooks, the mid-tier agent working the neighboring counter, had gone quiet. Her eyes were fixed on her screen fingers, frozen over her keyboard. Passengers were starting to complain, first quietly, then with frustration. "I paid for early boarding. Why is it not working? I've been downgraded. Is this a mistake? My app just canceled my connecting flight. Can you fix it?" Samantha offered tight smiles. She clicked her keyboard. Nothing responded. A red line of text appeared. "Access restricted. Please contact Systems Administrator." She frowned. In that moment, Ariana stood. Not loudly, not with drama, just the slow, deliberate motion of someone who had nothing left to prove. She walked toward the gate again, not to confront Samantha, but to make sure she saw. The boarding area was growing tense. Staff whispered in corners. Phones buzzed behind counters. A duty manager appeared, murmuring rapidly into his headset. Samantha glanced up and locked eyes with Ariana. For the first time, her face lost its composure. "What did you do?" she muttered under her breath, just audible enough for Daniel to hear. Daniel didn't answer. He was busy trying to log into the HR portal, his hands slightly shaking. He had seen the change. He had heard the phrase, "She's not our brand." He had watched Samantha mock Ariana minutes earlier, and now he saw the cracks forming wide and fast. The airline's internal booking software locked itself at 11:02 a.m. No upgrades, no special requests, no access to VIP customer profiles, a system freeze designed by Horizon Global's compliance team as part of their emergency review protocol. It wasn't a hack, it was policy. Ariana's team had the contractual authority to suspend technical cooperation if partner airlines failed to meet conduct standards. And right now they were failing. Ariana walked past Samantha without a word, pausing only to glance at the status screen above the desk. Boarding delayed. She turned away. Samantha stood frozen. Melanie Brooks whispered, "That's her. That's Ariana Sinclair." Samantha's mouth opened slightly. "No, it can't be." Melanie nodded. "CEO of Horizon Global. She owns the back-end tech that runs our whole loyalty system." Samantha's knees nearly buckled. It wasn't just about a seat anymore. It was about power. Quiet, strategic, and fully capable of dismantling an entire system, not out of spite, but because justice demands it. Across the terminal, Ariana reached a private lounge and slipped inside. Her assistant was already waiting with a tablet. Legal updates flashed across the screen. One major European airline had followed Horizon's lead and paused cooperation. Others were reviewing partnership terms. A hotel chain had quietly issued a statement committing to new inclusion standards, knowing Ariana's influence would touch them next. Ariana took a deep breath. This wasn't the end. It was the midpoint, and now the reckoning would begin. The mood inside the airline's West Coast operations suite had turned from routine to crisis. What began as a slight delay in system responsiveness was now full-on paralysis. Phone lines blinked furiously. Executives hovered near conference tables demanding explanations that no one could confidently give. Monitors displayed cascading cancellation notices, mass downgrades being reversed by partner systems, and a spike in internal complaints. At the center of it all was one name, Horizon Global Travel. In the corner of the operations floor, Dennis Kim, director of strategic accounts, gripped the edge of the table as he stared at the monitor. "Why did they trigger the lockout?" he asked. "This partnership's been stable for years." No one answered. Another alert popped up on screen: contract number Schuber 4218, suspension initiated by partner. Get someone from Horizon on the line. Now. But Ariana Sinclair wasn't picking up the phone. She didn't need to. Her absence was its own message. Back at gate 32, Samantha Delaney stood at the counter, her hands clasped stiffly in front of her, her once perfect posture now tight with discomfort. Her monitor had locked her out twice in the past 5 minutes. The system had stopped accepting manual overrides. A middle-aged couple in front of her was growing impatient. "Is someone going to fix this?" the man asked. "I am working on it," Samantha said, her voice shaky. Daniel Reyes stood to the side, no longer speaking. just watching. He had already typed out his internal report, each word heavier than the last. He didn't need to exaggerate or editorialize. He simply wrote the truth. Passenger Ariana Sinclair, first-class ticket holder, was reassigned to economy without cause. I overheard Samantha Delaney state that the passenger did not match our brand. I believe this was a discriminatory action. He clicked send. Melanie Brooks, the agent who had quietly witnessed the events from a neighboring terminal, was doing the same. She had spent the last hour revisiting her own role. Every moment she stayed silent. Every time she laughed along with Samantha out of fear of confrontation. Every instant she turned away from an uncomfortable truth. But silence was no longer safe. Not when the structure around them was beginning to fall apart. Upstairs in the executive conference wing, the airline's senior leadership team was already assembling. Coffee cups sat untouched. Jackets were draped over chairs as everyone hunched over screens. What happened at Gate 32, the chief operating officer barked. Customer escalation. A social media post, did someone record it? Not yet, said the head of partner relations. But that's not the problem. The problem is who it happened to. He tapped the screen highlighting Ariana's profile name title and the glowing red executive priority client, level 1 banner beside it. Jesus Christ, someone muttered. The VP of Tech murmured. She doesn't just use our airline. Her company runs the integration layer for our international booking systems. Every global itinerary touches her data architecture. The realization settled over the room like a thick fog. It wasn't just about one customer experience gone wrong. It was about offending the one person who could pull the plug and had. A call came in from Zurich, a strategic alliance partner. Their lead negotiator was blunt. We received Ms. Sinclair's notice of suspension. If this isn't resolved immediately and ethically, we'll be pausing our relationship with your carrier as well. The COO ran his hands down his face. We need someone in front of her. Now, apologize, fix it, grovel if we have to. But Ariana had already left the terminal. She was en route to her next destination, the Horizon Global headquarters just outside downtown San Francisco. Floor-to-ceiling windows, hardwood floors, and the soft hum of determination in the air. There she walked into the boardroom where her senior team was waiting. On the table sat a thick folder, documents, complaint records, partnership logs, and the finalized assessment report of the airline's conduct and system vulnerabilities. Ariana stood at the head of the table. Her voice was calm, but her gaze was diamond-edged. We're not revoking just one contract, she said. We're auditing all of them. Her chief compliance officer nodded. We've already frozen access to API services for 3 partner tiers. Loyalty data retrieval has been blocked pending investigation. Ariana didn't blink. I want our new ethical framework deployed within 72 hours, and every current partner airline hotel vendor must recommit under the new terms or be dropped. No second chances. She turned to her executive strategist. I also want a report on which smaller carriers and providers have strong equity and service records. If we're replacing giants, we're doing it with people who deserve a seat at the table. The room buzzed into action. No one asked for clarification. They understood. This wasn't just about retaliation. This was reform. At Gate 32, meanwhile, the air had gone cold. Samantha sat alone in the back office, now her phone on the desk, her login credentials suspended. The email from HR had been short. You are required to attend an emergency review meeting at 3:00 p.m. today. Please prepare a written account of the events at Gate 32 and be prepared to respond to employee testimonies. Her palms were damp. She had believed that her small gestures of bias, the looks, the delays, the smirks, were harmless. Routine. Part of the unspoken game. She never thought one of those passengers would be the person holding the key to her future. And now that person had gone quiet. Not because she'd lost, but because she was already 10 steps ahead. By evening, Samantha's name appeared in the HR incident log linked to 2 prior customer complaints. One she had assumed would be buried forever. But Horizon had requested full personnel transparency from all their partners, and the airline had no choice but to comply. Back at Horizon, Ariana looked out over the skyline. Her reflection in the glass was unreadable. Not vengeful, not smug, just done. Done waiting for others to do what's right. Done hoping that systems would police themselves. She had seen behind the curtain. She had lived behind it, and now she was tearing it down quietly, professionally, and permanently. By sunrise the next morning, every corner of the travel industry felt the tremors. Horizon Global's new compliance framework had gone live at midnight, and by dawn, dozens of long-standing vendors and airline partners awoke to find access revoked contracts suspended or partnership status moved to under review. No press release, no interviews, no warning. Just silence, precise and surgical, as the old power networks began to fracture. Some companies scrambled to recover, others sat frozen stunned by how swiftly their privileges evaporated. And a few, those that had long known their systems, were rotting from within, called emergency board meetings before breakfast. At the airline headquarters, a flurry of legal calls, PR drafts, and internal memos attempted to salvage what remained. But the damage was done. Major international clients had already issued their own suspensions, citing Horizon's ethical audit as a guiding precedent. More followed by the hour. In the center of it all, Ariana Sinclair said nothing. She didn't need to speak. Her strategy was unfolding exactly as planned, not through revenge, not through spectacle, but through disciplined action. Ariana spent that morning in a quiet meeting room at Horizon's Colorado Springs Retreat Center, surrounded by travel executives, operational leaders, and representatives from smaller ethics-driven companies, long shut out by industry politics. The space was intentionally minimal. No red carpets, no ego-driven introductions. Instead, Ariana opened the session with a simple statement: "We're not fixing the old rules, we're writing new ones, with integrity as the foundation." And with that, the conversation shifted. No longer about reputation management or damage control, but about systemic reconstruction. Each participant was asked to share their truth. Not just statistics or policies, but moments. A reservation agent who'd been fired for refusing to lie about an overbooking. A disabled traveler whose preferred seating had been reassigned again and again, always with a smile. A former airline VP who had been pushed out after proposing bias training for international staff. Ariana didn't interrupt. She listened. And then she laid out Horizon's new ecosystem model: transparent accountability for all customer service decisions, data tracking for unfair treatment patterns tied to staff IDs, real-time reporting channels for clients and staff alike, mandatory equity training for all partner-facing personnel, contractual penalties for companies who violate dignity clauses, but the most revolutionary element, the silent strike list, a confidential internal system used to quietly deprioritize, blacklist, or exclude vendors who fail ethical reviews. No fanfare, no warnings, just clean disconnection. Ariana made it clear: if you compromise human dignity, we cut you off. No argument, no redemption arc. We're not waiting for the media to catch you, we're watching ourselves. Around the room, heads nodded. Many of them had felt the sting of exclusion. Others, like Daniel Reyes, who had flown in quietly at Ariana's request, had seen it happen and finally found the courage to speak. He shared his story to the room, voice trembling at first. He told them about Gate 32, about the whispered words, about how he had almost stayed silent until one woman's dignity made him realize the cost of complicity. By the time he finished, several in the room had tears in their eyes. Ariana thanked him simply and handed him a small folder and offered to join Horizon's internal audit team, a position that would allow him to ensure no employee ever had to weigh their job against doing what was right. Later that day, Melanie Brooks submitted her own testimony, not because she had to, but because she finally could. And Samantha Delaney. Her future remained uncertain. HR's review would take time. But what was already clear was that her actions had lit the match and exposed the kindling behind an entire facade of corporate equity. No one from the airline dared contact Ariana directly. Not after the third major U.S. carrier issued a statement aligning with Horizon's ethics protocols. Not after social media began whispering that a quiet revolution in the travel industry had just begun, and that it didn't begin with hashtags but with silence. Ariana stood at the edge of the Colorado retreat grounds that evening, overlooking a ridge of tall pines. She had not raised her voice once. She had not marched, petitioned, or posted. She had simply refused to be dismissed. And because of that, because she had let the system destroy itself under its own weight, the world she worked in would never be the same. Sometimes justice doesn't wear armor. It doesn't arrive with noise. It doesn't storm the gates. Sometimes Justice wears a tailored teal suit. It rolls through the airport like anyone else. And it speaks not with shouts, but with action. Ariana Sinclair could have shouted. She could have made a scene at Gate 32. She could have demanded attention. But she chose something stronger. She chose restraint. She chose power exercised through preparation. And through that, she changed everything. This story reminds us that every moment we stay silent, every time we laugh nervously, instead of standing up, every time we avert our eyes to protect our own comfort, we're choosing a side. It also reminds us that silence isn't always weakness. In Ariana's case, silence was a weapon, sharper than any headline, stronger than any viral moment. It carved through years of injustice with precision. It left no bruises, only consequences. So if you ever find yourself watching an unfair moment unfold in front of you, at the airport, at work, in a restaurant, remember what happened at Gate 32. And ask yourself, will you be the one who pretends not to see, or will you be the one who breaks the silence? Thank you for listening to this story. If it moved, you share it with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's been silenced before. Someone who's watched from the crowd and felt powerless. Like, subscribe, leave a comment with your thoughts, and above all, keep choosing dignity every day.